Thank you, everyone. My name is Jason. I am your host. You're listening to the Brand Identity Design Business Podcast, currently ranked on Spotify at the top 30% of the most followed business podcasts globally. And it's been heard over 23 countries, mainly US, Canada, United Kingdom, Turkey, and even Australia, for a matter of fact. I appreciate everybody. And even India, I can't miss India because I'm from India. So, shout out to all my supporters from India. Without your love and support, this wouldn't have been possible. So, to give you guys a little context who I am, my name is Jason. I'm a brand identity designer. That's why we named the show Brand Identity Design, because I wanted to market my business and my talent and my skills. At the same time, I wanted not to attract more designers to the show. I wanted to actually attract my targeted audience, which is entrepreneurs. So that's why we made it like a business podcast. I hope that makes sense to you all. Now, what is the aim of this show, you might be wondering? So the aim of my show is to educate entrepreneurs about business ideas, business in general, share strategies on how to deal with adversities, while you run and manage your business. And sometimes, you need to take a break. Sometimes you need to do X, Y, Z. And by having unique and interesting guests on my show, you also get a flavor as to what all things people are doing out there in this world, so that you can be innovative from a marketing standpoint, do something interesting. I do this by interviewing high level business executives like Dr. Amanda, whom you see next to me, who are willing to share their personal and professional experience with all my listeners. So thank you so much for your love and support. If you have been joining us for the very first time, please do not forget to follow the show. All the links to my show is being mentioned under the event description. This event description page, it has all the links, not only to my show but also to my guest website, stuff like that. So I also want to make a few announcements. We would be ending season 3. The current season is season 3, and I think it should end roughly around the end of Feb. I have one reserved spot for a high profile guest, but due to scheduling and because this guest is busy, I'm not really getting a slot to make it work. If that interview happens, I should finish this season on March 1st. If not, Feb end, I should wrap up season 3. Usually when I finish a season, I take a 40-day break because you need to heal, recover, regroup, and find interesting people again. So season 4 is expected to start about mid or end of April of 2023. During that time, I'm also intending on launching a podcast magazine, which is going to be very exclusive to the people who have been a part of my show. So, listeners as well, if you are participating in my show, there is a possibility I might reach out to you asking you to be a part of this magazine as well. So it's not just for the guests, also participants who join regularly my show, and even join the conversation during Q&A, or sometimes even if you're just listening as well. I want to shout out to some of my good friends, Sarah again, Umika, Chi, and Jason, who is on Clubhouse. Thank you so much. And I want to acknowledge some of the people whom we have on stage, especially Jose, whom you see on LinkedIn. He's actually not only a good friend but also a sponsor of today's show. So, thank you so much for your love and support. Now, let's actually deep dive into this conversation. So, today we're going to be discussing about the neural coding experience. And I know it sounds a little awkward, it sounds a little weird, but this is very insightful and very exciting. So, Dr. Amanda Foo Ryland will speak on neural coding, which can be used to learn the win and behaviors of top achievers and then create a blueprint of unlimited success, which can be coded into others' neurology. Okay, now let me also give you a shout out on who Dr. Amanda is. Dr. Amanda is a highly skilled master coach, trainer in NLP and timeline therapy. She's also a clinical. Okay, I'm so sorry. Uh, Timeline therapy and clinical hypnotherapy. She also has a doctorate in clinical hypnosis. Dr. Amanda has founded Your Life, Live It 14 years ago. It's an international neural coding company that has trained over 4,000 plus coaches, and out of which 25 were selected globally to assist further in terms of coaching and training more people about the same subject matter. In addition to her coaching work, Dr. Amanda is also the best selling author and expert speaker on topics of resilience. Her TED Talk, Labelless Living, I would highly recommend you to check this out. I have already added this onto the event notes, not description, but event notes. It has received over 1.4 million views, and she's also recognized for a speaker award in London last year. Dr. Amanda's mission is to empower people to live life abundantly through the use of easily implemented resources. I'm really excited to have you with us. Share your insights and experience about neural coding, which is also known as neural linguistic programming. So, guys, round of applause to Dr. Amanda. Please welcome Amanda Foo Ryland, to the show.
Thank you so much, Jason. What an introduction. I feel very humbled and I'm really excited to spend this time with you. So thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm so excited to have you, with me on this stage. It's a complete honor. Let's actually move further with this discussion because I think that's what people are here for. Now, before we
Sure.
actually get into tactics, Dr. Amanda, I want to really know the person who is behind the microphone. Can you tell me about yourself, like who Dr. Amanda is outside your work as a coach and trainer? What do you do in your spare time? When the lights and cameras are off, what do you usually speak to your partner and children about? What are some of those conversations you're having? What are some of the insecurities or vulnerabilities you might be dealing on a day-to-day basis? And on a lighter note, what makes you smile and brings you joy?
Well, I think the easiest one to slant towards there is what is it that makes me smile and what brings me joy. And I think I have this ritual that I learned, and I can't remember where I learned this. And it's so simple, and many of your listeners will know about this. But I really do act on this every morning. I write down three things that I'm really grateful for. It sounds really simple. And when I reflect on those three things historically, as I've been doing this for probably about 3.5 years, health comes up as one of my number one joys. The second one is love, connection, and contribution. So those are the things that fill my heart with joy every single day. And that's massively global that a lot of people can connect with, and yet they're so simple. But for me, they're so meaningful. And I think one of the other things that I really enjoy is just an endless quest to learn. I'm making the call from Lisbon, which is the beautiful capital of Portugal, and I'm just learning to speak Portuguese and having lessons 3 times a week and using various apps and finding it quite challenging. It's an interesting language, so I love to learn as well. I think that's another thing that I find. Yeah, I'm an endless learner, and even in something that I am an expert in, and I do revere. The work that we've done over the last 20 years in deep dive into belief change work and neural coding. I'm still learning, because what's so exciting about this topic is the more we know about the brain, the less we know about the brain, because it constantly is evolving and changing. It's got that plasticity. So I'm endlessly curious about this topic, and there's never going to be a day where I go, oh, well, that's it. I kind of know it all around this subject, and I just love that we are constantly in this place of learning.
I appreciate you sharing this. I love the fact that you mentioned gratitude, love, connection, and the desire to learn endlessly. So this is pretty awesome. I appreciate trying you sharing this. It gives us a good idea as to who you are and what you do. At least roughly, it gives us a premise on who you are. So I want to acknowledge all the 33 people who are listening on LinkedIn, and a good friend Girish has joined the conversation on Clubhouse. So thank you so much for your love. Please invite a few people to join this conversation. If you're on Clubhouse, I would greatly appreciate this. Let's actually you know break this subject of neural coding down into bit-sized chunk. Okay, I want to first address the hypnotherapy side. Okay, so what is the difference between hypnotherapy and counseling, and do you think they complement one another or no?
I think it's an interesting question. I'm not a counsellor, and I've never studied counselling, so what I can't do is comment on what counselling is or isn't. However, what I can share is that I think counselling absolutely has a place when a client or when a person is stuck and they're not ready to change, they're not ready to move on. They want to perhaps just take some time, almost process, almost have support in processing what is going on for them before even embarking on any kind of change. So, and the reason I can speak to that is because in the number of years that I've worked with clients one-on-one, and our team have worked with clients, we find that we get a lot of clients that have been in the counseling model and have been in it for some time, and it's served its purpose, it's done a great job, and now they're kind of like, enough already, now I want to move on, now I want to make some changes. And that's when really the neural coding element or the hypnotherapy element comes. And I think it's really easy for me to be quite clear that hypnosis really is a blend. It's blended. So we use a combination of neurolinguistic programming, which is not a marketeer's dream. It doesn't just trip off the tongue. You know, it's people don't really understand what NLP is, neuro-linguistic programming. In fact, I was interviewed on breakfast television in New Zealand a couple of years ago, and the interviewer, I had no idea what they were going to ask me. And of course, it's on live television. And she said to me, you know, what does neuro-linguistic programming stand for? And she actually even tripped over her words because it's a difficult thing to sort of even say. And I said to her, you know, that's a great question. Essentially, the simplest way of thinking about it is, imagine you're looking at your phone and you're looking at all the apps you've got on your phone, and you've got one app that you've maybe paid a reasonable amount of money for, and it's supposed to do the thing you want it to do, but it's not doing it, right? It's just not behaving in the way it should. Then all you do is you go, you know what, this app's a bit useless, I'm just going to delete it from my phone, and you delete it. And then you go in and you find an app in the app store that's better fit for purpose, and you install that. And effectively, that's what neurolinguistic programming, or as we call it, neural coding, is. It's looking at programs that are running in the software, in our neurology, that are not serving us, but we just take them as that's us. That's kind of how we're wired, and therefore we've got to always live with that. That's not true. It's a myth. And what we can do is we can delete that program and install something that better serves. And hypnotherapy is a part of that. And the way the hypnosis is a part of that is that there's some linguistic beauty around where the change work happens, and hypnotherapy plays a role in that too. So I think counseling and neural coding are very, very different. Or if somebody's a hypnotherapist and that's purely their modality and that's what they're an expert in, I think somebody goes to a hypnotherapist because now I want to change. Whereas counseling is more, I'm really not happy with this situation. I want to try and make some sense. I need some help processing this. I need to heal from this. Okay, now I'm ready to go on. And historically, in our experience, the counseling model tends to go on for a reasonable amount of time. And that can be, in our experience, anything from 6 months to even years, like 8 years, 10 years with particular clients. Whereas the change work process tends to be much, much quicker. So one of the things that we say on our website is, you book 3 sessions with one of our neural coders, and effectively that presenting problem will be sorted in 3, possibly 5, 5 if it's a really complex issue, sessions, because it's about outcome, it's about change work, and it's about getting those results. So, that's, to me, are the main differences between counseling and hypnotherapy. Let's put it under the umbrella of neural coding.
Awesome. I'm glad that, you kind of broke it down in a way that people can understand it. I would be asking you more specific questions on some of the upsides of neural coding. But before we dive into that, because we want to make it contextual to people to get a sense of what you're trying to say. So I want to understand if hypnotherapy and psychotherapy, how it is different from one another. Does because both of them, I think it's aimed towards helping the opposite person. So, and I just want to get your perspective.
Yeah, sure. Both all change work or all modalities where we're working with neurology is to create some change within that person's neurology. I think that's true to say. And again, with psychotherapy, I'm not a psychotherapist, so I don't have an authority to speak to that. I can only again shed that light on what I do know about, and I think where hypnotherapy works particularly well is we're working with the unconscious part of the neurology. So, if I were to ask your listeners just to, for a moment, just kind of play a little game with me, and if you're driving, please don't do this, or if you work in any machinery, please don't do this. But if you've got your two arms free and you can just put your two arms down by your side, and what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to now fold your arms. Right, super simple. Everyone's found that very, very easy just to fold their arms. Now, unfold your arms again, give them a little bit of a stretch, give your fingers a little bit of a whittle, and now fold them the opposite way around. A little bit trickier that time, because what we've done is we have taken what the first time you folded your arms, that was unconscious programming. You have a program for how you fold your arms, how you cross your legs, how you brush your teeth, how you say hello to a certain person in the office in the morning, how you respond when you see somebody's name come up in your email box. We have unconscious programming that runs underneath the radar out of conscious awareness. The second time I asked you to fold your arms, I asked you to do it the opposite way around. So now you've got to become conscious of something that you don't have programming for. And that's where it becomes a little bit awkward. And, I can't see, obviously everyone's listening, I can't see you, but I do this when I'm speaking, when I'm doing keynotes, and I might have a room full of 500 people, and you can see the kind of difficulty of trying to fold them the opposite way around. So what hypnotherapy does is it works with that side of our neurology, the unconscious side. And in my book, I just did some new research. I talk about the fact that there are 11 million bits of information that can be processed by the unconscious mind every second. It's infinitely capable of being able to process and sort and filter those 11 million bits of information. But the conscious mind can only do 5 to 7 things. So you get a sense that when we're working in the realm of the unconscious mind, that's where the change work happens. Now, with psychotherapy, I would suggest that there is some work within that unconscious realm, but I think there's a lot more of the conscious and unconscious alignment and perhaps cohesion. Whereas in New Zealand, we playfully, I have a practice in New Zealand that is, my office. And on the door, I've got this beautiful kind of graphic that says, "Welcome to the changing room." And then at the side of it is a little box that says, "Please leave your conscious mind here." And it's playful and it's a bit of fun and it allows the client to have a bit of a laugh and it's a great icebreaker. But essentially, we're being serious because we don't want the client's conscious mind to come into the space. We want to work purely in the unconscious. And what hypnotherapy, what timeline therapy, and what neurolinguistic programming, as we kind of wrap it together as neural coding, does is it works with that unconscious realm, which allows us to really go to where the change needs to start to happen at the unconscious level.
11 million bits. Wow.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Wow. Okay. Let's deep dive, things further. Could you give us a little upside on what neural linguistic programming, which is also known as neural coding, but a better version of NLP. So what are the upsides of neural coding?
The upside is that it's context free. So what that means is for the client, if the client's coming from a place of pain, and they've had a lot of trauma, and if they have to climb into that, it's going to cause them to be reassociated with that pain. With neural coding, we can work with the client in a context-free environment. So for the clients, what we find, or anyone that does any of our courses, they kind of go, "Oh my God, this is so much fun. Like, I didn't know I could do this." And it's quite playful. It's quite provocative. It's very unexpected, particularly if they've been through, a counseling model or a psychotherapy model. It's very light, and it shows them what they can do, what their brains are capable of, as opposed to that kind of stuckness that they maybe have experienced, and that's why they've come to us. So I think that's the main thing, that the first take home for a client is, oh my God, I don't need to get upset every time, when I'm working with this, because we're just asking them some questions, getting them to imagine some things in their mind's eye, some pictures. We're getting to them to play with those pictures, move some things around. And so they're following instructions consciously, but the unconscious is the part that's doing the work. So that's quite refreshing, because what we call, when we have a client that's been to lots of different modalities, we call them an experienced client. They're used to literally coming with their own box of tissues, because they expect in every session they're going to be in tears. And that's really refreshing for them. So I think that's the first key component. And the second one is that we start and end each session or teaching piece with, what is it that you want to feel you've achieved when you leave the office? Or what is it you want to feel you've achieved when you disconnect from the Zoom call? And each session is an hour. And then we check back in and we go, okay, let's check back in. This is what you told me you wanted to achieve. Where are we at with that? So it's very outcome driven. So that the client is seeing tangible results on how that makes them feel right now. Whereas before they might have felt 9 out of 10 in pain. Now they're feeling much lighter, much easier, and they can see a solution. So I think that's the second component, is it's outcome driven. The third one is it's quick. It's fast. This is not years of therapy. This is 3 to 5 sessions with a core belief change that we might do with a client. And we know it works because I've been doing it a long time, since 2005. And I have emails from clients that are like, oh my God, I worked with you. I was one of your first clients, and I cannot believe how that's transformed my life. So this kind of change work lasts. And we call it, it's lasting change. And we also say to our clients, what you're going to create in your own life, we don't do the change work, the client does. You're going to create unthinkable change, which means you can't even think it yet. It's unthinkable. And the more that we peel the layers back, the more it'll become clarity as to what it is you can achieve.
That's outstanding. That's really outstanding. So it's very outcome driven and it's very, very fast. That's
Yeah.
lovely. To give people better context, and I'm also interested in identifying, how neural coding can be used for personal and professional growth. So, have you tried applying neural coding techniques in your own life? And if you did, what were the results did you see? And maybe you can give us a little idea as to what was the situation, how did you deal with it, and what were the results?
Yeah, sure, Jason. I think, my TED talk came about because of what's happened in my life, really since 2013. So I'm really happy to share this with your listeners, and I will go through a little bit of a whirlwind ride. So bear with me. I'm going to be very vulnerable in this piece, and I know a lot of it's going to resound with your listeners for sure, because a lot of people that are listening will have experienced one of these components. So back in 2013, I just written my first book. It was very successful. With my beautiful husband, Keith, who I've been with for 19 years. And, life was just fantastic. I just cycled from Land's End to John O'Groats, which, is the length of the UK, climbed the national 3 peaks at the same time. So we kind of, cycled the length and climbed the height. And I was as fit as a butcher's dog. And, I'd also, the year before, just run across Portugal, which is 7 marathons in 7 days. So you get an idea, right? Somebody that's fit and healthy and raising money for charity. And then in 2013, I was diagnosed with kidney cancer. And I'd never been into hospital before, only to visit people. So this was a big shock. And what I did was I delved immediately into my toolbox, because my tendency, or my default, my programming, my natural kind of default was to go, how can this happen to me? Like, I'm so fit. I've really looked after myself. I've just done this massive epic bike ride, 100 miles a day, for 10 days. This is crazy. And yet what I decided to do was I decided to look at the event as an adventure I hadn't chosen to go on, but I was on it anyway. So I might as well look at it through adventurous eyes, and look at it through, childlike eyes, childlike curiosity. And it served me really well. This is an NLP technique in many respects, because what we're effectively doing is we're saying, hey, look, how can I reframe this situation? How can I look at this through very different eyes? Because I was being spoken to as a cancer sufferer, a cancer patient, and a cancer victim. And that was not serving me at any level. So I needed to flip it. And I definitely came from okay, it's an adventure I hadn't chosen to go on. I'm on it anyway. Let's do it. Let's look at this through adventurous eyes. So the first thing I said to the anaesthetist when she came to meet me on the morning at like 6 a.m. to take me down for surgery, I was the first one down. She was like, Amanda, let me give you a little concoction. Let me, make you feel a little drowsy. And I was like, no, please, can I meet the team? Can I see the operating theatre? I'd like to learn more, because I've never seen an operating theatre, only on the movies. And so she was like, yeah, okay. Perfect. Let's do that. She thought it was a bit weird. She said, this is a bit odd, but anyway, let's do it. So I met 8 people. I saw the operating theatre. It was really shiny. It was like something out of Star Wars. And I also learned that they were going to listen to Freddie Mercury throughout the surgery, which I was, very happy with. I like Freddie. And so that was the first time I kind of went, okay, I need to reframe this experience. And the other thing I did was I set myself a future memory. And this is what we do with clients. So it's a phrase that I coined maybe probably even that day, back in November 2013, that I'm going to create a future memory. It's a memory that hasn't happened yet, but it will happen out in my future. And the surgery happened in the November, and I decided I was going to run a mountain marathon in the March of the following year. And that was me saying goodbye to the big C word, that I turned my back on it, and I was now living this healthy life. Now, on that November the 14th, 2013, if somebody had tapped me on the shoulder and said, a year tomorrow, your husband's going to die, I'd have said, no, you've totally got the wrong person here, because, he's healthy. But yes, a year and a day later, I lost Keith to stomach cancer. And again, having to dive into that toolbox to become resilient, to learn from it. Like, don't get me wrong, Jason, I certainly didn't, get the news and kind of come bouncing back. I don't wear a cape. I'm not a superhero. I'm a human being. And so, I drank a lot of Pinot Noir. I kept myself in a very grey bubble. For a while, I kind of felt sorry for myself, and I've already been touched by cancer once. Why is this happening again? The difference is that I knew that the longer I stayed in what I call affect, being affected by the situation, the longer I believed life was happening to me, then I would lose my power. I would lose my personal power. And so I knew I needed to make a decision. And rather than look at life as in life is happening to me, why is this happening to me? I decided to reframe it by saying life is happening for me. What can I learn from this? This has been sent to teach me something. What can I learn from this? And again, it just completely reframed the experience. So it allowed me to think, okay, so Keith's no longer here. I can't change that. What can I learn from it, and how can I grow? And more importantly, because of the field I'm in, how can I help other people? And so I decided that I was going to become the architect of my life, and I wanted to attract love back into my life. I'm not a solo traveler. I know myself well enough. And, for somebody that was been with a hot fireman for 10 years, and I was married for 5 years to a basketball player who was 6'7". And then I married my beautiful husband, Keith, I was with for 19 years before he sadly passed away. I fell in love again, but this time I fell in love with a woman. And you can kind of imagine, even my own mum said to me, Amanda, you're not gay, you're grieving, what you're doing, you're going through a bit of a phase, you need to calm down. But I knew my truth, and I knew my heart, and I knew that I'd fallen in love with the soul, and this soul just happened to be attached to a female body. And again, my toolbox really helped me, because there was a lot of judgment. There was a lot of, some friends even said to me, oh my God, have you been gay all this time and just like not come out? And I was like, absolutely not. No, I've had 3 very deep and loving relationships with men. They just happened to be souls that were attached to male bodies. So it allowed me to really think differently about what does being gay and straight actually mean? What does being all these labels that we have, which is why the TED talks about labelless living, are not helpful. And so again, I was able to dive into my toolbox, and Sarah and I got together. We decided to get married quite quickly. We decided that we wanted to have a family, and then a month before Sarah and I were due to get married in Portugal, in the Algarve, in a beautiful vineyard, we sadly lost Sarah's mum at the age of 60 in a diving incident. She was attacked and killed by a great white shark, which, to be honest, you've got more chance of being killed by a vending machine. We've done the maths, we've done the research. It is highly unlikely that that people lose their lives in that way. So imagine a month before we're due to get married, we dug into our toolbox. So the reason I'm so passionate about these tools, the reason I'm so passionate about what I do is because I know that they work. Sarah knows that these tools work. I would not be speaking to you now, Jason, if I didn't have this toolbox. I would be in a very, very different place, because there were just too many curveballs that just kept hitting. And without the knowledge of the neural coding elements, I'm not sure how I would have navigated it. So Sarah and I got married, and then at the age of sort of 51, we decided we're going to have kids. I'm 51. Sarah's younger than me by 14 years. She was going to be the oven, and be the carrier of our child, and I was just going to make sure that she was looked after really well through that experience. And so we, went down the IVF route, and we thought, well, we're only missing one component. It's two women, so it's obvious what the component is. Surely we're going to get pregnant straight away, and we didn't. We had 3 failed attempts. We were a little perplexed as to what this meant, but we'd set that future memory. We just kept going, and we again looked upon it like life as an adventure. And we were very blessed that on the 9th of March in 2019, 2 baby boys were born, 4 minutes apart, Noah and Jasper. I was 52 then. A lot of my friends went, "Oh my God, you're too old to become a parent. This is crazy. Most people are becoming nanas or grandmothers." And so, again, what my toolbox has allowed me to do is live my life on my terms with my truth, and be strong enough and trust myself enough to know that my unconscious mind knows what's best for me. And each and every one of you that's listening, your unconscious, your gut feeling, whatever you want to call it, your higher self, the unconscious part of your neurology always knows what's best for you. It has a blueprint for perfect health. It knows exactly where your true north is. And I just really learned to listen to that by being able to delete some things that were not serving me and ask the right questions to myself and be able to reframe. So I'm absolute testament and passionate about these tools, because they work and they are easy to implement, and they are easy to help you navigate things when life throws you huge curveballs, which I've just shared with you.
Absolutely. I can, like, I'm speechless because, I can clearly see a fighter, a thriver. You survived cancer, you had to deal with the loss of your husband, and then when you got married to Sarah, her mom died accidentally. A lot of death, a lot of things, which are happening, a lot of pressure on you. So you're clearly a fighter, and I'm very, very happy to see you in this place, in this position of power as you are right now, using those tools. That is incredibly lovely. Now, since we are on the half an hour mark, I want to quickly give a shout out to my sponsor. We will continue with the interview after this short sponsored announcement. And during this time, guys, if you're listening, have a sip of water, stay tuned. We will be opening up the space for Q&A shortly.
Fast track your success by becoming a world-class communicator. My name is Jose Ucar. I'm a communication and public speaking coach and the founder of the World-Class Communicator program. If you pay close attention to the best communicators and most influential leaders out there, you will notice that they all have 3 things in common: a winning mindset, communication one-to-one skills, and public speaking. This is precisely how this online training course is laid out. The knowledge I provide in this training will enable you, amongst other things, to talk your way up the business ladder, Become the influential leader people look up to. Grow your personal brand and your business. Deliver memorable and persuasive presentations. Create enriching and long-lasting relationships, and much more. So, what do you say? Are you ready to become a world-class communicator? Join us today using this very special 75% off coupon. Just go to worldclass-communicator.com and enter Jason, all in capital letters, JAISON. And I look forward to meeting you very soon.
Lovely. That was Jose, whom you saw just a while back in the audience. I am only doing sponsored ads, allowing only guests who have been on my show to advertise on my show. Outsiders are not welcome, unfortunately. So I would highly recommend you to have check Jose's course out. The details are listed on the event notes on LinkedIn. You should be able to find this, or if you're listening to this recorded version of the show, you should be able to find it under the show description. Let's get into this conversation ahead. Give me a sec. Okay, so a few other questions which I had right now for you, Dr. Amanda, is that, okay, since we are speaking about neural coding, neural coding can be applied, and this is just an explorative question, okay? I'm just asking just out of curiosity. Can we use neural coding principles in the treatment of drug addiction, with the goal of helping individuals overcome addiction? Could it be effective for maybe reducing instances of violence among prison inmates? Can it be utilized for maybe fostering compassion and healthy relationship dynamics in individuals with a history of abuse? This is just out of curiosity, since we're speaking about growth, since you spoke about trauma just a while back. Do you think we can apply this methodology for these things also?
Absolutely. All of the above that you've just labelled there. I remember specifically working with a young man who had addiction to Class A drugs, and not only Class A drugs, but also whilst his medical doctor was trying to get him off Class A drugs, he was also addicted to prescription drugs. And so this was a young man around the age of 26 years old, not a teenager, not a youngster, but obviously a bit of a history with drug abuse. And the key component with any change work with neural coding is that the client really wants to change. And therefore, any behavior, any symptom, any malfunction in our neurology that's not serving the person, if they're really ready to change, then neural coding can help them to do that. And that's the key component. Now, sometimes I have parents reach out to our community and they'll say, the general one is they might have an 18 to 20-year-old son who's got a marijuana addiction, and he's doing a lot of gaming, and the parents are naturally very, very worried. This person's become quite insular. The hours are mainly the nocturnal, and they're not really playing a part in the world, and the parents are naturally very concerned about this. And one of the first things we say is that, what's the most important thing is that your son or your daughter wants to change. We know that you want them to. However, what we don't want them to do is just come along to sessions online just to please mum or dad, because you're going to waste your money. They're going to waste their time. They're going to waste our time. They need to be really, really ready. And that is the key component. So we've worked with clients that have had sexual abuse from the age of 5, and the lady came to me when she was in her early 70s. So this is a lot of trauma that she's been carrying for a long, long time, and has been through many, many, many different modalities to try and rid herself of all the emotion that went with that trauma from that horrific string of experiences. And yet, when she came to me, she was just ready. She was ready, and she believed she'd been guided to the right facilitator. We were in the space. She flew down from Wellington in New Zealand to do a breakthrough session with me, which is over 3 days. And she walked away. And, this was about 5 years ago, and she's completely, as she would say, free. She's got ultimate freedom. So it seems like a light treatment to something that that can be very, very complex in a person's life. However, the only question is, are you ready to change, and are you prepared to do what it takes to get that? And if the answer is yes to both of those things, neural coding can help. In fact, I was having a call yesterday. Somebody was interviewing me in the UK, and they said to me, when else would neural coding never work? And I said, well, if the client's not prepared to change. Well, when else? I said, well, really, everybody's got a brain. So, you've got a brain, it works. It's that simple. The only time it wouldn't work is if somebody hasn't got a brain, which doesn't exist. So neural coding works with neurology, it works with our brains. So it can work with all problems, providing the conditions are correct.
Absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate you sharing this. This is a big eye opener to me because I've never actually, heard context or people giving information on how it can be used to solve these specific problems. Okay, I appreciate you sharing that. I see Michelle down in the audience. I think she's a psychotherapist. Michelle, I have seen you, I guess, on previous episodes as well. If you like to contribute and provide your insight as a psychotherapist on what you just heard, you're welcome to join the stage. I also want to give a shout out to Lachelle Atkins, America's Supermom. So lovely to see you. And Arpit. Arpit has actually been a regular listener on my show, same as Natasha from Clubhouse. And lovely to see you guys, being here. And if you're interested in coming up on stage, you're welcome to raise your hand. I will be happy to bring you up. Please join this conversation. Okay, now continuing further, I just have one other question before we start Q&A. So if we shift our focus from neural coding just towards hypnotherapy, I want to address some of people's concern because I saw a lot of these questions on Google while I was researching about the subject matter. So the question which arises is some cultures, okay, view hypnosis as spiritual or supernatural practice, while many others view it as scientific or like a medical intervention. So additionally, culture norms and values may have an influence in the way the individual respond to hypnosis and suggestion made by a therapist. Now, how do you think the use of hypnosis in therapy may differ across cross culture, and how do you take cultural differences in account in your practice as a hypnotherapist and neural coding coach? If you get my question.
Yeah, I understand your question. I think hypnotherapy has really been given a bad name, and I think the reason for that is because of the hypnotherapy shows that we might see locally, or we may see on the TV, where a bunch of people are invited up onto the stage and they are hypnotized to be chickens, or eat an onion and think it's an apple, and it's kind of deemed as entertainment. And it was interesting because I in Queenstown, New Zealand, in the South Island, I spent a lot of time there, and I got called by the mayor of the town because she was very concerned that her daughter had been hypnotized at school. And ironically, I went to see the show out of curiosity. So I went to the high school and I saw this hypnotherapist up on the stage, and he was kind of fooling around these sixth formers, and it was entertaining. Everyone was having a good time. It was light, it was harmless. And I felt he whilst it was in the name of entertainment, I felt he was very gentle and respectful to the students. However, what the mayor of the town said to me was, I'm really concerned about my daughter, because since the hypnosis, she seems to be really lethargic and really, really tired, and I'm wondering if he hasn't brought her out of the trance. And I said, look, I'm really happy to have a chat with her. And that chat was very quickly resolved in that actually she was kind of playing on it a little bit, because it meant she didn't have to study quite so hard. So there was secondary gain for the daughter. But I just thought it was so interesting that here's the mayor of the town bewildered as to what's happened to her daughter because of this hypnotherapist on stage with these other 20 students. And so I think there's this myth around it. I can't say what other hypnotherapists do, Jason, but what I can share with you is that if it's rare that I would purely use hypnosis in a session with a client, because I might have a plan to do that, but generally I'm using a combination of different modalities with that client. However, if I know that I'm going to be using hypnosis, we have a contract. We have a contract with every client, which we ask the contract to sign. Sorry, the client to sign before we engage in any one-on-one time. We also have a series of questions that we ask the client to fill in, and that's all online. All of this is digital, so that we know what it is the client's wanting from the particular sessions, what outcomes they're wanting, what presenting problems are, and all that information. But more importantly, the contract shines a light on what we'll be doing in the sessions. So if there is anybody that is coming from what you've just mentioned, in that it could be revered as being spiritual and that person's deeply religious, then that would flag it up. So we would be able to have that discussion. So we're very respectful of the client's what we call model of the world or version of reality. And we make sure that whatever it is that we're going to be doing with that client fits with that within their model, in order for them to feel comfortable. Because one of the things that any good change work person would do, whether it's counseling, psychotherapy, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, whatever modality it is that we're using, the first thing we've got to do is allow that client to feel as relaxed as possible, as quickly as possible, so that we can really start to get to what's going on for them. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. It was a lovely answer, and I appreciate this very, very much. We will open up the space for Q&A, and I want to let you guys know, just in case if you're new, the conversation is being recorded, and I will be uploading this conversation on Spotify, Google, Apple, and all other podcasting platforms. So if you're coming up on stage, you are giving me consent to go ahead with the recording. I just want to put it out there. I want to welcome Ashley Sarah. It's late night in Indonesia, in not Indonesia, but Thailand. But how are you, Sarah? So nice to see you. Please flash your mic if you're available. And oh yeah, Sarah, welcome. She's actually on Clubhouse, guys. You would not be able to see her on LinkedIn. So Sarah, do you have a question for Dr. Amanda? Would you like to contribute to this conversation?
Yeah, first of all, good morning. It's like 12:49 a.m. here in Bangkok, but I just like to say that a really interesting conversation. And I mean, I learned so much from her. And the question I have is, um, how does that, how does neurocoding, like, how can we get that in a country like Bangkok?
So your question is, how do you source it in Bangkok? Neural coding?
Yeah, because you see,
Yeah, sure.
when I say Bangkok, I meant Asia. It's not a it's a
Mm,
new thing. So
mm.
anything new in terms of, neurologists or anything like mental illness or anything that is new in Asia comes out as a very negative thing. And it's very hard to, I like what you say and I understand it, but not everybody in Asia would understand that. And it's very hard to get anyone to even get their child to go because of the surroundings saying no.
Yeah, sure. So there's cultural pressure because it's not acceptable. This is not somewhere we want to go. So there's what you're saying is it's not specifically the location; it's more the cultural influence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. You got that
yeah,
right. And
sure,
that's why I
sure.
also had the same cultural question, because in Asia, I'm also a part of Asia, and we had like similar, like, nobody wants to be called as a coup.
Sure.
You get what I'm trying to say, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, help Sarah out. What do you think?
I think well, the great thing about what's happened, particularly during COVID, is lots of things have gone digital, lots of things have gone online. Now, we call what we do, we're in neural coding. So we're a neural coding academy. We teach people neural coding, what we call mind hacks. Essentially what it is, it's neurolinguistic programming. So that's where it's born from. It's just that, as I mentioned earlier when I was chatting to Jason, neurolinguistic programming was kind of born in the the mid 70s. It's got a really, in many respects, in some countries, got a bad name for itself. It can be perceived as manipulative, and it's not had a great press, I don't think. And so However, there will be people in Bangkok that are practicing this, that are teaching this. There are people in Singapore. I know one person that I trained with, Sebastian, that's running a very good school in Singapore. So I know that there are these schools here that are ethical, that are teaching people in a really what can I say, respecting the modality as opposed to, trying to make a quick buck. So I think it's a matter of perhaps if you connect with me personally after, maybe I can point you in the directions of some really great ethical practitioners in those locations. However, the flip side of that is this is online. And one of the things that I'll be talking about with Jason a little bit later is you can take a dive into these tools and look underneath the hood as to what's going on by way of some of our courses. And one of the courses that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to be gifting away. It was born out of a result of Sarah when she lost a mum. One of the questions I asked her was, what have you learned from this? Because this is one of the questions we constantly ask ourselves. And she said, just to be me. And I said, okay, how can we teach other people the lessons that you've had without the curveballs? And so we developed a 5-hour course online called Just Be Me. There's no prerequisite. There's no charge for it. We've been giving it away since COVID. We normally charge $400. We've been giving it away. It gives you the opportunity to climb in, or anybody that you think would find neurology interesting, to climb into kind of a little bit higher up the iceberg. And if you're like, I love this, then you can take a deeper dive and actually qualify in neural coding. And all that's on our website. So please know that I do know that there are people that are practicing and practicing well and teaching well in the areas that you're talking about. I think it's a minefield. I get exactly where you're coming from. If you just put in NLP Bangkok, all sorts is going to come up. And how do you know if it's good or bad? And there are definitely some pointers. If they're aligned with the American boards, which are the biggest boards in the world. So are they aligned with the American Board of Neurolinguistic Programming, Line Therapy, Clinical Hypnosis? If they're aligned with those boards, then you can pretty much hang your hat on the fact that they are a very credible school and credible practitioner as well. So hopefully that answers the question for you.
Yes, it does. And I have just one question more. Is that okay to ask, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And after you, we'll
So,
go ahead with Girish. Go ahead.
okay, I won't take much of your time, but I just want to ask you if you say that it's important for the patient to actually be ready to do it. What if the patient is not ready and the mother takes on the practice of understanding how to do it? Does that work also?
Well, I think we've got to be careful there, because in my experience of working with children and parents, sometimes the parent is part of the problem, and the parent doesn't see that. And when we point that out to the parent, they're like, "Oh my God, oh my God, like I can't believe it. You are so right." They hadn't seen it because they've been trying to help so much that the help is actually hindering the change work. So in my recommendation would be that the child knows that this change work is available, that it's going to be quick, that it's going to be fun, perhaps different to what they've experienced before, because maybe that child's gone through other different modalities and they've not had so much fun with it, or maybe not got the change. And just be patient. And what we tend to do when we're working with the youngest child I've worked with is 5, and the eldest person I've worked with is 86. So you get a sense that it's a massive range of client base. And in fact, we have a kid and teen coach based out of the UK called Rebecca Cousins, who's my beautiful sister and does an amazing job with children. And one of the things she says is, I always invite the parent in on the first session. And after that, I just work purely with the child, because the child can just be free to talk about what it is that is bothering them. And in some cases, it's the parent. So I think we've got to be very careful and look at what that particular scenario is between that dynamic. And in my experience, it is generally better for the child to come and work with themselves, with that expert in that field.
Thank you so much. That's very
You're
helpful.
welcome. My pleasure.
Absolutely. And Sarah, I'll send you details about Dr. Amanda so that you can reach out and ask clarifying questions if you have more. I want to actually give a shout out to my man Girish, one of the first individuals who kind of helped me to get into this podcasting game. He coached me also, so thank you so much, the one and only Girish. Please flash your mic if you're available. He's on Clubhouse. Lovely, lovely. Do you have a question for Dr. Amanda or anything you'd like to contribute to this conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jason, for inviting me up. Dr. Amanda, nice meeting you for sure. I have a question for you. When it comes to Alzheimer's, now, science has shown that women is getting faster in order to get the Alzheimer's versus men. And is that a true statement? That's one. Second is, if that is the case, is there a way to slower the process for all genders when it comes to Alzheimer's by using the neuroscience part of things?
This is a really, really interesting question. And, I'm going to be really, really honest with you. I don't know the answer to this. What I do know is there is an incredible book called The Brain That Changes Itself by a gentleman called Norman Doid. And if you haven't read it or you haven't listened to it on audiobook, I would highly recommend that everybody, in my opinion, everybody should read this book. It is a game changer when it comes to neurology and brain plasticity. And what Norman did was, I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. What he did was his father had a stroke, and he's a neurosurgeon. And his brother was also in neuroscience. So both brothers basically put their careers on hold. They were both told that the dad would never walk again, never speak again. The stroke was so horrific. And what they did was they decided to take it in turns and go down and live in Phoenix with their dad and literally treat him like a toddler. They took children's toys and taught him to speak and walk. And he actually ended up having a heart attack climbing a mountain in his late 80s. So, regained everything. And this got Norman really, really curious about what the brain can and cannot do. Now, in that book, he touches on Alzheimer's. And what he talks about is that one of the key issues in preventing Alzheimer's is learning something new throughout our life. And learning something new, golf wouldn't do it. It's very clear that it's not something like golf. It's not a sport per se, because the body's used to doing that. It's a neurological learning. So it's things like a new language or a musical instrument, something that's completely new to the neurology, has a higher opportunity of decreasing the chance of Alzheimer's. So that's really the only light I can shed on that. I lost my father-in-law, Keith's dad, passed away, and he had Alzheimer's for many, many years, and it's such a cruel experience for everybody involved. So my heart goes out, and we do get a lot of questions around this. I just think it's that thing that I said to Jason right from the beginning: the more we know about neurology, the less we know. So, I'm sorry not to be able to give you a definitive answer. I'm just gleaning on what I've read about it. And, if you haven't read that book, I think he's brought out a second one now. It really is worth a read, because it will open up and completely challenge what we think the brain is capable of in a very exciting way.
No, you definitely answered the question, which is no answer at all, because a lot of people are still try to still understand it. So the answer that I got is still a good answer. Now I know that you have already answered this question. Now the question is that if people are going through certain losses in their family, or even just the life is not going the way they're going, right? People, they go to the psychologist and neuroscience and everything else that you can think of, right? But according to them, if they ask for help, they're thinking that they are, I don't know, broken or disabled or whatnot. So how do we tell people that asking for help is not a bad thing? It's actually a good thing.
I've noticed a big difference since COVID. I was down in New Zealand, so the Kiwis are pioneers. Particularly, this is a massive generalization. However, I'm going to put it out there, particularly the farming community and particularly males. It's not cool to talk about the fact you're struggling. It's not cool to talk about the fact that, you're frightened. Where are you going to provide for your family? This COVID thing's just wrecked everything. And yet what we noticed, because I was down there for almost 2.5 years due to COVID, was we noticed this opening up and loosening up around, I need help. And mainly from the sector that we'd not experienced it from. So I think it's probably in my experience, it's changed certainly since COVID hit, that it is okay to have this conversation, that it is okay to say, I need help, and that's a good thing. So I think that's a great thing that's come out of COVID, in that it's giving people permission that perhaps otherwise would have just remained very quiet. New Zealand does have still one of the highest percentages of male suicides between 18 and 40, though, that said. However, COVID has loosened this discussion. So I think the second part to that question is, if you suspect anybody in your network, anybody that comes underneath your radar is struggling, is just to show some kindness and just to give some time and just ask, hey, are you okay? Because sometimes that's all it might need, is just somebody that just says, how are you doing? How's things? And listen. And I think where we can tend to sometimes default is, we've got so much going on in our own worlds that we ask somebody how they are, and they start to tell us that things are a bit rubbish and they're not feeling so good. And then we draw a parallel of what that's like for us in order to try and make them feel better. Whereas actually what we need to do is just take a step back and go, okay, listen, I'm here for you. Talk to me. How is this for you? How is this affecting your sleep? Just know I'm here. Let's just talk about it. Because sometimes just that really helps somebody to go, so I'm excited in that I feel that it's the embarrassment of asking for help has definitely loosened its grip since COVID. And hopefully, you'll experience that as well. And I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. I can go on, but thank you again for your time there. Yeah, thank you,
You're
Jason.
welcome. And please reach out to me privately if there's anything else that you would like to know more about. More than happy to help.
Awesome. So that's my friend Girish and Sarah. I'd like you guys to continue staying on stage, because your involvement would be required when we do the rapid fire round. Sarah is aware of it. Girish, you had taken a break from the show, so you may not know. I made a little changes, something fun, which I like you to be a part of. I want to welcome Wade to this conversation. How are you, my friend? High five over on LinkedIn. So nice to see you and have you again virtually here on this, LinkedIn Live. So go ahead. Do you have a question for Dr. Amanda, or would you like to contribute to this conversation?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason. Good morning or good afternoon.
The audio is speaking low, Wade. I'm so sorry. Maybe you can adjust the microphone.
Is that better?
No, still low. Dr. Amanda, can you hear him?
Just very faintly.
Okay, I'm terribly sorry. Just my one question for you is, I've had some experience with neurofeedback, and how would that be different from your neuro programming?
So neural feedback, you need to elaborate a little bit. I'm not familiar with neural feedback, so just share with me a little bit about what that is, and then I'll let you know what I feel the differences are.
Okay, the neurofeedback systems that I have used, and I used to work with a mental health support system, and in our program, we used neurooptimal neurofeedback. And what this does is it hooks you up electronically at 8 different points in your brain, measures your electrical feedback, and through auditory signals, as far as through listening, through music, through tempo and the
Sure.
pace and so forth,
Mhm.
it changes the whole curriculum, and it helps in many respects of what you're doing as far as in the reprogramming of the brain.
Yeah. Okay, great. That gives me, I'm now clear on what it is. I think they're very similar. I think the difference is that what we replace, perhaps the eight points that are hooked up to the system, we replace that with the modalities. So we look at what we call submodalities of our neurology. So those are our sensors. So we're asking a client, what just allow a picture to come into your mind's eye. We're wanting to know a lot of detail about that picture. So the person's doing it kind of for themselves, as opposed to perhaps an external element that's changing those frequencies. So the client's in control, steered. I mean, all we do is hold the remote control, and we're very clear with the client what that means. And then we ask them to imagine a soundtrack. We ask them to imagine some internal dialogue. We ask them to imagine a feeling, an actual physical feeling, like are you picking up a cold glass? We ask them to imagine an emotional feeling, and there may be some taste and smell in there as well. So we're effectively eliciting all the submodalities of the neurology in order to recode what's going on within there that's not serving. And that effectively is where neurolinguistic programming is born from. It's the language and the senses that we play with to change how that appears in the neurology. So I think it's similar. I think the outcomes are probably, I would imagine your sessions were really outcome driven, in that you would go in and say, this is what I want. And they'd probably check back in with you there to say, hey, look, are you noticing that this is different for you? So I think it's a similar approach.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I would notice is with our clients, that the first few sessions, it would take some time. The sessions would last 30 minutes, and typically by the time somebody had done about 30 sessions, they had such immense changes in their whole psyche and outlook on things. It was just absolutely dramatic. And you would see some where after just a couple sessions, you would go in to unhook them, and they would be absolutely in tears, and you're like, are you okay? And they would be like, yes, I'm just tears of joy. The first time that I've actually felt things properly in such a long time, and been able to have a clear focus on outlooks.
Yeah, so humbling, isn't it, to experience that when somebody just feels so free, and yet they didn't realize it was actually going to be so simple.
Absolutely. I thank you so much for your time and your
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Jason, as far as I will have to leave early, I'm going to stay on as long as I can, but I don't know whether I'll be around for later on. All right.
Absolutely.
And I thank you so much for today. This has been absolutely fantastic.
Lovely, lovely. It's always lovely to have you, Wade. Thank you so much. And I want to give a high five to Thomas Condell from Australia. I'm a big fan of Thomas because he's not only a good person, but a regular participant of the show. And how was your vacation, Thomas?
I'm still on vacation, Jason.
I'm so glad you made it. You didn't have to, but I really appreciate the love and the support. Thank you so much for being here. And as you guys know, he's from Australia, so I think it's somewhere around 4:35 a.m. AEST.
Correct, almost correct. 4:10 AEST. Sorry, I'm in Queensland, which is they don't have daylight saving because it's so hot up here, as Dr. Amanda would know.
Yes, yes, it is
coming
hot.
from living in New Zealand, Queensland, they don't. Yeah, they're sort of backward because it's so hot. So they want, instead of having daylight saving, the sun goes down in Queensland about 7 p.m. instead of about 9 p.m. As opposed to where I live in Melbourne. The sun goes down about
Dr.
9
Amanda,
p.m.
do you hear like a back feed when Thomas is speaking? I just want to make sure it's not me. Do you hear like a vibration?
Just a little, a little bit of vibration in the background.
I'll take my wire out. Take my wire out just a moment. Hang on.
We want to ensure that the audio quality is premium.
That's better.
That's much better.
Yes. Okay. Clear as mud. Dr. Amanda, thank you or Jason, thank you for inviting me on stage. I'm a bit late. I woke up late. I woke up at 3:30 a.m. instead of 2:30 a.m., which is Queensland time. But look, I've I've got a kind of a question and kind of a statement. So the kind of a statement is I've been studying NLP for 30 years, purely as an interest, I guess, or a passion. And it's not, formally, it's just, reading books, listening to podcasts and stuff like that. But obviously 30 years ago, reading authors and stuff like that from bookshops. My kind of statement is my mother had Alzheimer's. She died a year ago tomorrow, at the age of 89, after suffering quite painfully for about 6.5 years. And 6.5 years she was in a aged care facility in Melbourne. But even though it was really painful, and it was during COVID, so, Melburnians had 262 days of lockdown. And about 6 months of that, I couldn't, communicate with her. Obviously, I couldn't communicate with her over the phone. They suggested Teams and Zoom, and obviously that's no good because she could only communicate with touch. But two interesting things happened to my mother, whose name was Joan, during that 6 years. The first thing was she was a very accomplished pianist, and so she lost her ability to speak a lot earlier than her ability to play significantly complex pieces on the piano. Secondly, when I used to walk her in the park outside the aged care, and in the end it would be in a wheelchair, she would never communicate with adults. However, when there was a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old, or even someone younger than 2 playing in the park, either by themselves or with their parents, my mother's eyes would light up, and she would start a conversation with the 2-year-old or the 3-year-old. And it was amazing to watch, because initially I thought, oh, Mum, stop annoying this kid. But then I realized it was her brain reverting back to her childhood. And it was incredible to watch. Her eyes would light up, and she would start conversing with this 2.5-year-old, and she would talk about the train that she's playing in on the park, or she would say, her hair tie was beautiful pink color, or she would say, ask her how she's feeling and stuff. And it kind of gave me some sort of little bit of hope that, inside my mother's brain, which was racked with Alzheimer's, she still had that connectivity with another human. She couldn't connect with a 58-year-old like myself, her son, but she could connect with a 2-year-old. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that. Have you done any studies on it, or have you heard about it much?
Thomas, thank you for sharing that. One of those COVID stories that we've heard so many times, and I'm sorry to hear that. I haven't personally done any studies on this. However, there is some research in the UK where what they have started to do is take kindergarten kids into old people's homes, and it actually is twofold. So it's not just the little ones and they are under the age of 5. It's not just the little ones that benefit. And sorry, it's not just the older people that benefit, it's the little ones as well, because they're learning things from these people that have got all this wisdom and all this patience and all this grace and time, and yet what they've noticed is that the older people, and probably if you just I don't know what the show's called, but it's a documentary. You might even want to just Google it. Toddlers into care homes in the UK. What they've noticed is that the people in the care home really open up with these little ones. They can just be playful and be childlike again, and I think that's probably what you're explaining there with your mum's experience, Joan's experience. So it's not something I've noticed. I haven't researched this personally. My little boys are 3.5 years of age. They are, obviously endlessly curious. And what I notice, interestingly, we do a lot of walking, and we're near the beaches. In the summertime, they'll gravitate towards older people. Children their own age and older people. Noah in particular will just go and plonk himself. He did this on the beach last year. He went and plonked himself between 4 old ladies, and they were all probably in their late 70s, early 80s. They were eating sandwiches, which I think is a key component. However, he sat there for ages, really, really happy, chatting away to them, and they had a lovely time. So I think it's twofold. And, we've lost that as adults now, but children haven't. And there's a reason that they perhaps are attracted to this person that's full of all this wisdom and knowledge and time and grace and love and experience. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Thomas.
Pleasure. There was a number of shows in Australia on that, that they had a group of 4-year-olds, 3-year-olds maybe, I think 4-year-olds who attended aged care, and they filmed it over a number of episodes, I think up to about 8 episodes, and it got quite a good audience. So I think similar concept. But I think what fascinated me about it was it's human to human connection, and when Alzheimer's racks the brain and eventually the body, there's still a part of the brain that reaches out and has that connection. And my son, who's 16, he was about 13 when he was last able to connect with his grandmother, and he connected through humor. My mother was always a person that loved a joke, and my son, I think has inherited that, a little bit quirky in that sense. And what he used to do was take a photo of him and her, a selfie, in the aged care room, and he would then use Photoshop to dress it up and put a beard on her or give her pink hair.
Filter, Instagram filter.
yeah, all that kind of thing. Brand identity, yeah. Maybe he should listen to this show, Jason. But he then created a montage or whatever, and then would show it back to her, and of course her face would light up. She would laugh. She would joke. Etc.
I want to first of all say, thank you, Thomas, and as well as Girish, for you guys to be vulnerable by sharing those experiences, which are very personal to you, and you're curious about it. And I'm glad that, Dr. Amanda was able to address them. I would highly encourage you folks and people who are listening as well to reach out to Dr. Amanda if you need more professional help. If you think she's the right fit, please take guidance or seek guidance from Dr. Amanda. So we want to actually move ahead with the rapid fire, and I also have a trivia thing, which I have planned. But before we get into that, I have questions for Sarah, Girish, Wade, and Thomas. My question for all of you guys: have you watched the movie Unbroken by any chance? Yes or no? Thomas?
Who's the main actor, Jason?
Dr. Amanda, who is the main actor? Do you remember?
I actually can't remember his name.
Louis Zamperini. It's a That was a
I
make.
haven't watched it.
Okay.
I haven't watched it. It
Okay. How
sounds
about you,
familiar,
Wade?
but I haven't watched it.
I think I have. How long ago is this movie?
I think 2014 or 13, probably around that time.
Yeah, I believe I have, but it would just be vaguely.
Okay, no problem. How about you,
And
Girish?
unfortunately, Jason, I do have to go, so I'm terribly sorry.
No problem.
All the
No
best,
problem.
everybody.
Thank you so much for that. Girish, how about you?
I've heard about the movie. It's 2014. I think it's
I think you're
uh
Googling things right now.
no. It's by 2014. So I don't remember the actor, but I meant to see the movie, but I did not see it.
Okay, awesome. How about you, Sarah? Sarah, any idea? Have you seen this movie?
I don't remember it. I'm
Okay.
not sure. Can't say for sure.
No problem, no problem. So we're gonna keep the trivia questions only for Dr. Amanda with related to the movie, and maybe you guys can get a laugh out of it. Okay, but it's her favorite movie. I recently watched it, and I think it's pretty cool. So let's start with rapid fire questions. Okay, so one common question for everyone on stage, and rest of the questions will go to Dr. Amanda. Question number 1. If you had to choose one accent, Dr. Amanda, to talk in for the rest of your life, which one would you pick?
It would be the Galway Irish accent. I just love it.
Can you maybe illustrate to us as to how does it sound?
Now. Oh, geez, now how you going? You all right? that's kind of my take. I just spent a lot of time in the south of Ireland when I worked for Estee Lauder, and I just loved particularly the Galway Irish accent. Yeah, that's the one I would pick for me.
Okay, why is it called Galway Irish accent?
Well, just because the people from Galway, it's the town of or the city of Galway. They just run all the words together. When they speak, they sound as though they're constantly smiling, and they've just got some really cool little sayings. And I just really used to enjoy my time down there. And I also like Christy Moore, who is a great songwriter, and yeah, so all that lovely Southern Irish stuff I really enjoy. Yeah.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Okay, question number 2. One thing you really find funny and unique about your Volkswagen camper van. I don't know if you still have it, but I remember.
I
Oh, you
do.
do?
She just became Portuguese. We just put Portuguese plates on her. She's lime green, just so your listeners can get a picture. She's lime green. She's called Little Miss Dottie Florence. And inside she is completely decoupage which is kind of like a kind of craft work in like Rupert Bear. So she's colorful, she's bright, and the thing I love about her most is her voice. She has a voice. And so our little boys, when we take them to school, they'll say, good morning, Dottie Florence. And she'll go, good morning, boys. How are you today? So she's very public school girl. She's got a little bit of a lisp. She doesn't like the rain. She doesn't like going too fast, and she doesn't like any swearing. So definitely her voice. And the funniest thing is that these little boys just chat to her all the way to school, and we talk back to her in Dottie Florence's voice, and then they'll ask me a question, and I have to remember to go into my normal voice. Yeah, so we have lots of fun with Little Miss Dottie Florence's voice.
Little Miss Naughty Florence, right?
Little Miss Dottie.
Oh,
Dottie Florence.
Oh, Dottie Florence.
Yeah, Little Miss Dottie Florence. Yeah,
Quite a personality.
She's very much. She's kind of like lashings of ginger beer. Oh, let's go and have a marvelous day. That she's very much like that. So that's her voice that we've kind of. That's her brand. That's her brand, Jason.
Okay, next question. Okay, and see, I'm getting all these questions based on your bio. So, if you could listen to one song by Ed Sheeran for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
This is so lame, but it's the Christmas song with Elton John. I just love it. And it's, he brought it out last year. I can't eat, and I love Christmas, so I'm not allowed to listen to Christmas songs. Sarah forbids me once Christmas period's over, but if I could listen to it all year round, every day, Jason, I would listen to that. It just makes me smile. It's about love. It's about loving the people around you. It's about remembering the people that are no longer here. It's got all the elements, and it's got the Christmas cheer as well. What's not to love? That would be my pick.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, due to copyright and those kind of issues, I can't actually play the song. So Ed Sheeran and Elton John, "Merry Christmas" is the name of the song. Please, listen to it, and I'm gonna be listening to it. Once we finish with our interview. Next question for you, Dr. Amanda. What's the weirdest thing you have ever seen or found while traveling?
Wow. Whew. That is an interesting question. The weirdest thing. Okay. I think the weirdest thing I've ever found, and probably the weirdest is the wrong word, although it was weird at the time. I found some beautiful friendships from what seemed to be quite weird people at Burning Man. Because everyone at Burning Man's weird, right? Burning Man is this event that goes on in the Nevada desert. It becomes I think the third largest state in Nevada for that particular week that Burning Man is running. And I've been there twice, and everybody is weird and wonderful, including me and Sarah. And I have just met some of the most beautiful people in such a weird place where everything's harsh and hostile, and you don't know if a sandstorm's going to come, and the temperature plummets at night, and it's this city that just basically emerges. And of course, people will have heard about Burning Man. There is sex, drug, and rock and roll. However, there is so many more elements. It's got everything that a city has. And what I loved about it was the gifting. It's just a gifting mentality. You walk in there with, the only thing you can buy is ice. That's it. And everything else is gifted and shared. So it's weird because Burning Man is weird, but the best thing ever, because we've got some lifelong friendships out of going to the weirdest place on earth.
That is incredible. I appreciate you sharing this, with my listeners. It really gives us a context who you are as a person, and some of those wonderful things which you have shared. One common question for everyone, and I know we're kind of short on time. Is it okay, Dr. Amanda, if we can extend the show by another 10 minutes?
Yeah, that's fine. Go for it.
Lovely. Okay, so one common question for everyone on stage. Do you have like a funny camping tradition or superstition that you follow with your friends or family? I'm going to start with you, Dr. Amanda, and we will go ahead with others.
Well, we always tie up bunting. So those are the little tiny flags, and we tie them between Dottie Florence, and we have this big tent called Gloria. She's Gloria the Gloaning, and she's like a big 5-meter tent. And so we have lots of bunting and fairy lights, and we also take a travel guitar. And so Sarah and I play guitar and sing. And so it's a tradition that we always sit round and we always sing. Now the boys are only 3.5, so they're just learning that this is what we do. Although I was brought up with this, so I come from a family of, mum and dad used to take us to Scarborough camping, and dad would take his guitar, and that's what we did. So we carry on that tradition. And when the boys get old enough, if they want to play the guitar, I probably am not the best teacher. We'll probably get them a proper teacher. But yeah, hopefully they'll continue the tradition too.
I'm very hopeful, and I feel they will. I like the fact that you like to name everything.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it's a little crazy. We've got so many names for so many things in our house. It's mad.
Let's actually get to know from Sarah. Sarah, I don't know if you have done camping. I'm a big fan of camping. I used to ride my motorcycle around India, and we used to do a lot of camping. So I want to hear from Sarah. So Sarah, how about you? Have you done camping? Do you have a superstition or a tradition which you follow?
Well, it's not like a camping, but when my kids were young and at that time when I was still married and all that, we used for every single New Year's, we used to go to this place called Khao Yai, which is not far from Bangkok, and we would just be there, and it's like a farm place in Thailand. We call it the mini Texas, and there's lots of farm animals and cows and all that stuff, and it's like a cowboy place. So every New Year's we'll be there, and having our countdowns out there. So we did that for like 6 years or 7 years, and that's what we used to do. But of course, that's discontinued because now it's different. So yeah.
I appreciate you sharing it. You should hear her speaking Thai, guys. It's really funny. Sarah, would you mind saying something in Thai?
สวัสดีค่ะสบายดีไหมคะ
Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate this. Okay, okay, but let's be respectful for my guest time. So, Girish, I want to hear from you. I am positive you have done camping. So, he's from New Jersey. So, can you tell us, what are some of the superstition or traditions which you follow?
That's a pretty cool stereotype that New Jersey people know how to do camping. Um, I don't know about camping. I've done a lot of ski trips with my family. I've done a lot of road trips with my family. And what I usually do also with the family, which is a Sunday night uh, get together with the family. So it could be a barbecue, it could be a drinks, or it could be whatever. Um, those are the fun things for me. And I know the key word that I use there is family, because there are a lot of times we don't spend time with the family. So these are the things that I try to do. But if you're talking about me, we can talk about that offline. But yeah, that's it for me.
I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much, Girish. And I totally agree with you. With family, it's so much fun. But sometimes without family, it can be also be fun too. I'm just saying. So, but I agree with you 100%. So I want to hear from Thomas. So Thomas, I don't know if you have been camping. Uh, Tell us a bit.
Yeah, I had to put my wire back in because the birds are really noisy because the sun's rising up here. So I don't know if you can hear the birds, but
Yeah, it sounds
um,
loud. It sounds loud. It sounds
they're
loud,
really
but it's nice.
loud noise. But look, I used to be a scout and a venturer in Australia, so I did a lot of camping, but that was many years ago. And then once I got married, my wife only loves 5-star stuff, so she's never camped in her life. But no, I can't answer that question. Too long ago. Sorry.
No problem. I appreciate this very, very much. Thank you guys for participating in the rapid fire thing. But I want to give Dr. Amanda the opportunity to speak about her business. Could you tell our audience as to what is your vision with your company, and where do you plan to see yourself, moving ahead in the future? Like, let's say 5 to 10 years down the line. What are the things which you want to accomplish with your business, and how can people reach out to you?
I think the easiest way to describe that is when I started the business in 2005. It's that beautiful metaphor of the little boy walking along the beach and throwing back a starfish into the, all these starfish on the beach, and he would throw one back and then throw another one back, and this elderly gentleman stopped him and said, "You know what you're doing? You can't possibly make a difference. There's all these starfish on the beach." And he picks up a starfish and he throws it back and he said, "Well, it made a difference to that one." And so, when I started back in 2005, there was only me using these what I call fast, effective tools to allow people to create unthinkable change. And my vision for the future is to train people at a high level, to accredit them with the right accreditations, and to build a community and a tribe. And we've already got 26 people in that tribe already. So there's 26 of us, effectively walking on that beach. And so we're building a structure where we're growing as an organization. We're global, and I can just see more and more and more of that. So we can really change the way that perhaps change work is seen, and change the way in which people perceive they can train to become qualified in a really professional manner, with toolboxes that really work to be able to help the clients. And not only that, invite the right people where our values are aligned to come and join our community, and to be mentored, and to be surrounded by like-minded people. So that's the vision for the business, for sure.
Lovely. And how can people reach out to you? What would be the best way?
The best way to reach out to me is two different ways. You can either reach out through yourlifeliveit.com, which is super simple, or dramandafooryland.com, which is my speaking website. So I am an international expert speaker on resilience, and that will give more sort of personal information around me. But either of those websites, they'll be able to connect with me. And you know what, I know I mentioned earlier about Just Be Me. So if people are interested in taking a 5-hour dive, however they want to do that, you know, there's no time limit on this, but it's a really powerful course that is video driven, and it's filmed all over the world. So sometimes we might be up a ski field in New Zealand, or we might be on a boat in Portugal, and it's Sarah and I kind of sharing these neural coding mind hacks, not so much looking underneath the bonnet, more about how do you do certain things to help you in certain situations. And that's Just Be Me, the course that was born when, you know, Sarah had her learnings from losing a mum in the way in which she did. And we've been gifting that, as I said, since COVID to support people. And I think we've had about 6,500 people go through that course and get great results. That's one way that people might want to learn more. The second way is if you're like, I really want to learn these tools. I want to get underneath the bonnet. I want to take a look at what's going on in the engine and understand neurology. Then the Ultimate Transformational course is our signature course, which is, again, completely online. And the beauty about that is you would get your own neural coder that works with you. We call them your learning mentors. So they're teaching you as well as facilitating that unthinkable change and really cleaning up your neurology throughout your experience of not only are you learning, but you're completely recoding. And at the end of it, you would leave with 3 certificates all aligned with the American boards, and maybe a possibility to join our tribe, obviously if our values are in alignment. So that, you know, those are the 2 opportunities that people can take a look a lot deeper. So dramandafooryland.com and yourlifeliveit.com, Jason, are the best places for people to connect, or obviously through LinkedIn. Just, you know, I'm there. Just send me a message if there's something more personal that you would rather discuss.
Absolutely. And you know what, actually, I just realized in the beginning when we were doing a sound check, you did mention about a review or some award which you won just recently, and you're traveling to Texas the end of this month. Would you mind sharing this with my audience?
Yeah, it's 2 things actually that have happened. I've been invited to go and speak in Dallas at the end of this month. So I'm actually flying off to the States for, I think, 3 or 4 days. I'm dropping in to New York to see a very dear friend of mine who's actually on this call. So I'd like to say hi, Joan, and thank you for dropping in and listening. I'm going to see my beautiful friend for 2 days, but I'm going to Dallas to film. So Amazon Prime have a product called Speak Up, which is their answer really to a TED Talk. So the TED Talk's done very, very well, and I've been invited to go and speak there. So that'll be 18 to 20 minutes in front of a studio audience, which I'm really happy to do, filmed through free cameras, and it'll be aired in the US through Prime Video. And then today I just found out that my book has had a review from, what's it actually called? Let me find the right terminology. It's called readers review. So basically the readers review it, and then they send in their information, and this company collates it. And I'm very excited to have been given a 5-star recommendation. And this organization comes out of Texas, which is, again, very exciting. So there's a lot happening over there in the US. I'm very excited about the book. It's getting some fantastic reviews. And as I say, you know, it went to #1 bestseller within, I think, about 7 hours of launching, which just shows that people are really curious. Yeah, really curious about how they can change themselves. And the passion for writing the book is to take the reader on a journey and allow them to discover things that they wouldn't ordinarily discover about themselves.
Awesome. And I appreciate you sharing this. Is there anything you want, the audience to be left with? Any final thoughts or conclusions you have?
Absolutely. I think my message is really simple: is that, you know, I think there's a myth out there that change is hard, that it's expensive, and then it takes a long time. And actually, that is an illusion. change is possible for everybody, and we've got so much capability inside of us. In fact, in our practice in New Zealand, obviously the door says, welcome to the changing room. But as the client goes inside, on the wall is a piece of artwork that we've had popped up there, and it's all branded, and it's lovely, and it's quite beautiful, and it says, "You are so much more than you ever think you are." And I think that is what I would like to leave your listeners with, is that you are so much more than you ever think you are. And when we work with people's neurology, we're constantly amazed on a daily basis just to how incredible we are.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love this. What a fantastic interview, and I think you contributed so much. I'm very, very happy. I wanted to actually give people a heads up on the next week's show, season 3, episode 19. The current one, which we just finished, this is going to be my 81st episode, and next week it's going to be my 82nd episode. More than 7,000 minutes of content which I have created in the business category, by interviewing high profile people and guests. So the next interview is going to be about managing founders fatigue and reclaiming your spark in 2023 with Nicole Gotch. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. I struggled a bit. Let's call her Nicole, and I would be broadcasting on YouTube, like a video stream, and even on LinkedIn. But for my listeners on LinkedIn audio, I'm also gonna have a space dedicated for audio so that people can engage and interact. Okay, she's a marketing strategist. She will be happy to provide you tips on identifying and addressing feelings of exhaustion as founders, anxiety, burnout, and overwhelm, with founders generally deal with. So, Nicole will provide you tips on regaining motivation, overcoming burnouts, maintaining the energy and focus you require to run and manage your business. It's going to be an exciting conversation. I have more details about the event on my LinkedIn profile. If you look under the featured section of my profile, you should be able to find this event being featured there with the event link. So on that note, I want to thank each and everybody listening to this conversation. A lovely, lovely morning, evening, afternoon, or wherever you're in the world. Please take care of yourself, and shout out to Dr. Amanda for such an exciting and lovely conversation.